Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to ModGolf Live. I am your host, Colin Weston, and today I have another amazing guest who we've had on the podcast 4 years ago. We just looked back at when that was, and that was September of 2020. And this gentleman, as far as an entrepreneur, a founder, an innovator, he wears all those hats and has come so far since I first had that conversation with him almost 4 years ago. And we're going to bring him on in a second. That is Mr. Terry Koehler, who is the founder and I believe he's the director of innovation, and also the chairman of Edison Golf, which focuses solely, purely on wedges and premium wedge design and kind of the technology behind that, the story behind that. We're going to recap some of the things we talked about 4 years ago and the progression, because they've just launched their Edison 2.0 wedges. So hang tight for that. But before we get to Terry here, as I always do, I always start off with what I call my Monday morning musings. Well, it's still morning time here. I am in Vancouver, so I'm on the West Coast. It's 9 a.m. I know if you're on back east there, it's already noon. So it may not be morning, but just bear with me here that this is what we do. I kind of recap or talk about a couple of things that I found of interest that have inspired me in the last week since we last got together here. And the Olympics are going on now. So I am binge watching with multiple streaming screens going on while I'm editing podcasts. And of course, last week just wrapped up. Yesterday is the men's event. So wanted to talk about that for a second. And of course, with Scotty Scheffler coming back, and I think he shot a 61. I think he was 9 under to come from way back to win the gold. Tommy Fleetwood, the story afterwards with him of what he talked about as far as how gracious he was for having the opportunity and winning that silver medal. And of course, with Hideki winning the bronze. And what I love about this, very much like the Ryder Cup, they don't get paid anything for this. It's all about the country. It's all about pride. So I found the Olympic Games now in golf. I think it's one of my one of my favorite events. Yes, I love the 4 majors. Love the Ryder Cup, President's Cup that's happening in Canada, actually in Montreal, not in Vancouver, but that's happening on Canadian soil in September. And those events, those team events, and those country playing for your country, it's like the passion that's there and the crowd. It is really amazing. So congratulations to those 3 for winning. The women's event is coming up, I think, starting in a couple of days too, on the same course. So that's happening. And also in sport, on the Olympics here, just finished up this morning with gymnastics here, and that's with with Simone Biles here. I got to say that, the work that she's done with her mental health 4 years ago, or actually 3 years ago, pulling out, having something called the twisties. I'm not a gymnast, so what had gone on with her, but she had an injury. It wasn't a physical injury. It was a mental injury, and it really blocked her and stopped her from competing. All the haters were piling on, and she fought through this, and how hard she's worked over the last 3 years. Like, it makes me very proud. And that story of perseverance and recovery and kind of reinventing herself also from that. So that just ties into a lot of the work that I do with mental health, not only with youth mental health, but also with men. And we talk about this in the podcast all the time. So, talking about Simone and her challenges and what she's still dealing with, but managed to overcome and win, I think it was 5 medals, 3 gold at the Paris Games. So one of the organizations and charities that we support is called Heads Up Guys. So they are a platform that are here for men of all ages, for support, for tools, because you know what? Life is hard. And between depression, anxiety, loneliness, it all hits us at some time in our life at certain points. And as men, we quite often are growing up to either bury that and just put that aside and kind of suck it up and be kind of figured out on our own. And just let you know, we're breaking the silence here. And yeah, with Heads Up Guys, we support them, and just wanted to tie that into everything with what Simone has dealt with. And she's put it out there with her story. And I'm very proud of her of having that courage to do that. So yeah, wanted to talk about that. Other thing I wanted to talk about too is our latest podcast. So last week we released our second last episode of season 15. Gosh, hard to believe. We've been going for almost 7 years now, and what we're doing there. And that was with Jeff Nicholson with a company product called Verticat. Verticat actually is the progression of the paragolfer, so the stand-up mobility rider for paraplegic athletes, is to give people with mobility challenges the opportunity to play golf, to actually have this sense of kind of meaning, and another way in their lives just to be connected and with others, and also for themselves to just to have just a great opportunity to be involved in golf. And with that, with the Paragolfer, another organization that that is connected to the Paragolfer is called the Stand Up and Play Foundation. So just wanted to mention them also. We talked about them a little bit on the podcast. Didn't really talk about them as much as probably should have. So I just wanted to give them a little bit of a shout out also here with Stand Up and Play, and what they are doing here with this charity and the events that they're doing to give people with mobility challenges this opportunity, whether it's helping them to fund a Verticat or even the events and the community that they're creating. So yeah, just wanted to mention that with them. Now, all right. One of the other things I wanted to mention here before I bring Terry on is with what we do here with ModGolf Live here. This is part of tied into the kind of the premium content that we provide with our ModGolf Patreon community. And some of you may be saying, what the heck is a Patreon? So this is a community that I've created about 2 months ago, where we have over 100 members now. We've got 9 paid members, and I thank all of them for participating, because everything that they provide on a monthly basis just helps to cover the costs here for the production, for all the things I do with the podcast and on YouTube, out in the field. So yeah, I thank everybody there. And the bonus they get also is, also if you are one of our monthly paid members, you get entered into our latest ModGolf giveaway. And Terry has offered up, I know there's 4 wedges there, but there's only going to be one that he's going to be giving away later on after the show. But he has graciously offered one of their new Edison Golf 2.0 wedges, and that's going to be down to 9 people. They're going to be a lucky random draw for that, and some of these people have won some fabulous golf gear already as our Patreon members. But that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be giving away a wedge. So just wanted to mention that we're not going to give it away today, because if you're watching live today, interactive, or if you watch afterwards in the next week, that you'll have the opportunity to join also. So we'll include that link also in the bottom of the screen, the banner during the show. So yeah, hey, I encourage you to join our Patreon community here, not only to get exclusive content, but also, as I mentioned, to get a chance to win some awesome free golf stuff. And who doesn't love to win free stuff? I love to win free stuff. So yeah, I can't win this because it's a bit of a conflict of interest there. So yeah, join our Patreon and you'll have that chance to win awesome golf gear not only all summer long, but every time we do a ModGolf Live here, which we do each and every Monday morning. So with that, now it's time. I'm going to bring him on. And here he is. Terry, good morning. Still morning for you. I believe you're in Texas. So good morning and welcome to ModGolf.
Yeah, it's great to be here again, Colin, and pick up where we left off 4 years ago, and bring you up to date on what's happening at Edison Golf.
Absolutely, absolutely. So hey, for us to start here, Terry, why don't we start with almost where we picked up off with or left off, I should say, with the podcast more than 4 years ago. Why don't you give people an overview if they're not familiar yet with Edison Golf? Give us the brief, kind of like that quick couple of minute origin story of your why. I love this story here of you being the one with the pain points on a Scottish or Irish golf trip many, many years ago, and how you managed to hack together overnight to make your wedges so you like them more. And that was my understanding, really the genesis of the kernel of that idea behind Edison Golf. So yeah, why don't you tell us the origin story of Edison Golf?
Well, it does go back to 1990, Colin, and I had been designing putters for about 5 years and had some successful designs for for Merit Golf and the Ben Hogan Company, and I made a golf trip to Scotland with my brother. And I had begun to kind of think about wedges a little bit, but I hadn't really done anything yet. And we got to Scotland with the very tight turf over there, and man, it was just really challenging with the sand wedge I had, which was just one of the major brands at the time. And before the wedge world got so conflicted with all these different bounces and grinds, but I just had idea. We were touring Ochterlony's golf shop off the 18th green at St. Andrews, and I saw they had a grinding wheel in there, and I just had this idea. It just came to me about working over the sole of a wedge. So I ran back to the hotel and got my sand wedge and came over there and just ground a whole lot of material off the bottom of that wedge, and then ground a pretty aggressive bounce into the first quarter to a third of an inch of the wedge. And by the time I got through doing all that, it looked pretty ugly. And I ground around on the bottom of the hosel where it meets the bottom of the club, and to make it look something like a golf club. By that time, I ground a whole lot of weight off of it. So I packed a bunch of lead tape on it, and we began to use it. Actually, the next day we were headed over to Troon, which is kind of an interesting story this last couple of weeks with the Open at Troon.
Yes.
And that was the first place that we really tested this out. And we had our caddies hitting shots. My brother and I were both hitting shots. We were like amazed at how well this thing handled the tight turf. And, your very next shot, you walk into a bunker, and that stimulated me to begin to work on wedges. I came back and bought a bunch of wedges out of the used club barrel and began welding and grinding and grinding and welding, and came up with what I patented as the dual bounce sole. That trademark passed on to another company. I called it the V sole when I did the wedges for Score, which that then passed on to the Ben Hogan Company when I brought that brand back into golf. And so after taking a powder after the Ben Hogan experience, and I decided I wanted to start another wedge company because there were things I hadn't done yet. And what really makes Edison different, we have this sole design, but what really makes Edison different is I've studied wedge fitting profiles for 30 years now, 75, 80,000 of them, and heard the same thing from recreational golfers. They hit the ball too high, their distance is inconsistent, don't get enough spin, and they're handicapped at certain kind of lies with their specialized mounts and grind. And I said, what Edison needs to be about is the everyday golfer. The tour players have Bob Vokey and Aaron Dillon and all these people taking great care of them. Their games are so different than ours. Even the better recreational golfer does not have anywhere near tour player skills. And in the study of wedges, I said they need something very different. And that's the genesis of Edison, is wedges for all the rest of us, not tour players.
And myself, I'm relatable because as a 14 handicap, actually I'm back up to 16 handicap because the more I'm in the golf industry, the less golf I play, which is frustrating, that I was warned about. But you were gracious enough 4 years ago that you sent me some of your, and I've got them right here, and I use them every day. I did clean them up, but these are nicked up, and because I love these. And you are walking the walk here, not just talking it here. So yes, I've got my original. Let me get them on screen here. So as far as, there we go. Well, let me tilt that up there. So with the bounce, I know I'm not doing them justice here, but these are the original 1.0. So these are 4 years ago. You sent me a 51, 55, and 59, and I absolutely love these wedges. And for me, yes, as that golfer that does not, unfortunately, strike the ball right on the sweet spot of the club face. It's always a groove too high or a groove too low in between, or where that is. But I can truly attest, and you're not paying me a cent for saying this, that these wedges have made a difference for me. That am I playing scratch golf? Absolutely not. But I know, because the other ones I have with the name that will remain unnamed here, but high level performance wedges of a name that you just mentioned here earlier. I've used those, and your wedges respond and are much more consistent, and I just hit it closer, just plain and simple with your wedges. So now, why don't you tell us that you've just launched the Edison wedges, the 2.0. Please let us know what the difference is, the progression between these ones here that I have, if you want to call these the 1.0s. What's the difference? What have you learned over the last 4 years, and what have you now embedded inside of these new wedges that make them even better than the original?
Well, in the study of wedges, what's really fascinated me, as I've studied wedges, I've got wedges in my collection dating almost all the way back to when Gene Sarazen invented the sand wedge in the 1930s, almost 100 years ago. And through the 40s, the 50s, into the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even into what you see in the stores today, there's been very little change in wedge design. And so you have all the weight on the bottom of the club to facilitate this big sole. But what you have is a very thin club head in the top 2/3 of the sole, above the fourth or fifth groove. There's just no mass in any of these wedges. So when you look at the difference between tour players who have learned how to make contact consistently down around that second, third, fourth groove, they're getting more of the golf club above their point of impact, so they can hit these penetrating trajectories and get lots of spin. But the recreational golfer, and I've been a bag room snoop for 35 years, and when I look at wedges in the bags of even good 4, 5, 6 handicap players, you see an impact pattern that's bigger. The tour player's wedge typically shows a wear pattern about the size of a penny, and they get new wedges every 2, 3, 4 months,
right,
to keep them fresh. But the recreational golfer, even the better player, you're going to see a wear pattern on the wedge if they've had it for any length of time that shows up 3 or 4 grooves higher to the center of their pattern, and their pattern is the size of a $50 rather than that penny. And so as a result, the recreational golfer, again, even the low single digit, they see more distance deviation from shot to shot. This ball's caught a little high in the face. Everybody knows that wedge shot that's perched up in the rough and you catch it high in the face and oh, damn, it's not going to get there. And it doesn't. And that's built into the golf club. That, it's kind of not your fault if you want. We deliver absolution there. It's not your fault. That club cannot deliver the same smash factor on the 6th groove that it delivers on the 3rd groove. And I think the big thing that holds back the wedge category, when you look at wedges compared to drivers and irons and putters and golf balls and shoes and everything else in our industry, wedges have not changed anywhere nearly as much as these others. And I believe it's because the big companies are so myopically focused on their tour players and the feedback. One of the new wedges on the market, it's not just tour inspired, it's tour driven. Well, right. If you're not one of those 200 or 300 golfers that's good enough to make your living doing it, and you do it all day long because you don't host a podcast or run a company or sell insurance or cars, you just do not have their skills. And I think that, what's real interesting, and kudos to Scotty Scheffler yesterday for a phenomenal, 4th round to come from way behind and win the gold. And I mean, it's great having an American win the gold. But, this morning, all the stories are what's in his bag. And everybody wants to know what's in the player's bag. Well, he's playing 2-generation-old wedges from a company that's not even his sponsor. Okay, so he's not playing 4-year-old wedges. He's playing 4-year-old wedge designs, but he's getting fresh new ones. But even the very subtle changes from that 1996 or 98 design to the 2000 or the 2018 design to the 2020 to the 2022 and now the 24, those changes were even too much for him because it caused a slight difference in the way the ball launched and the way it spun and the way it performed. You can't throw changes at these guys around the greens. They're so magical. They are so talented around the greens. They don't want that wedge to change because their learning curve is cumulative. They've learned thousands of different shots around the greens to, unbelievable perfection. And I had a very accomplished mini tour player. I said, I want you to try my wedges. And he dropped the ball and he hit this little pitch shot about 35 or 40 feet. And he handed it back. He said, this club's too hot for me. It spins too much. And so he wanted predictability on that wedge. And when my wedge launched 3 or 4 yards further with more spin, he goes, I can't use this. I've learned how to hit these shots with my wedges. And that really rung home to me, how refined, and this is a 2nd or 3rd tier mini tour player. And even he found that was too much difference in launch. And the average 6 to 10 to 20 handicapper, he'd love to see a bunch of changes in his wedge performance because he's looking to get better. That's why he's buying new drivers, occasionally new irons, cavity back, technology, hybrids. We're all trying to always get better. And what getting better in golf primarily means is having your kind of mediocre shots turn out a little better, more like your best ones. Unless you're an ardent practicer and lesson taker, your skill sets don't really change that much without a lot of work. And most of us don't have the time to put that much work. So we're going for golf clubs that help make up for that. So that's what Edison is all about. Wedges for the rest of us, not tour players.
Well, I am definitely right here is your target market here. Like I said, hovering around that 13 to 16 handicap, knowing where I need to put the work in. Don't necessarily have the time to get out there and grind and just work on my short game and improve my technique. Also, I do, but not to the level of what I would really want to do. And that's because time is that most precious commodity that I just don't have as much yet to practice. So yes, having your wedges to kind of help offset that, and I love the way you put that my mishits or not my best shots are not so bad that then all of a sudden I'm short-sighted, and then all of a sudden it takes me 3, if then not 4, to get down, and then all of a sudden I'm writing another double bogey down, where if I if I manage to hit the green or at least get on, even with a 70-foot putt, at least maybe a 3 putt is a bogey. But those are the ones that still kill me, are those ones that get away because the approach shot is kind of killing me a little bit. So yes, having your wedges in my bag has made a big difference for me. So I can truly attest. So with that, I wanted to ask you, as far as your testing, how do you go about gathering data and use that feedback loop for the progression of your designs? Do you test with people like me? It sounds like there's not as much value of you going for the mini tour players or those elite level players. So tell us about that over the years. How do you actually get feedback, and who do you test with? Do you have like a squadron of people like me in that mid handicap range that you use to test your clubs and get that feedback?
Well, we test in 2 or 3 different ways. One is we use the swing robot for robotic testing. Now,
okay.
In wedges, that's a little less representative of real play, because you're hitting the ball off of a tee. You've got the swing robot set. You plot out a pattern around the face of the golf club, and we plot a 1-inch circle around the face of the club for center hits, low face, high face, heel hits, toe hits. And what we're looking for out of the robot is a mechanical feedback of, with the exact same swing. What does that club head do hypothetically, basically, because it is a robot. And then we take our designs and we go into a group of test golfers. We've got some very skilled teaching professionals, some of their students from, scratch and that range all the way up to 12 to 20 handicap. And we put those golfers with a launch monitor in a series of shots to hit shots from a tight fairway lie, a fluffed fairway lie, bare ground, ball perched up in the rough. And we look at that downrange dispersion. We look at the launch angle. We take the feedback from the golfer. How did that feel? And we boil all that in. You asked the question, I kind of distorted it, I guess. But the Generation 1, we put about 25% more mass above the 5th groove than any wedge on the market then or now. And to the Generation 2, we moved another 17 to 19 grams up above that 5th groove from right behind the center impact point to even further enhance. We still find golfers, 70, 80% in our wedge fit say I hit my wedges too high, I don't get distance consistency, and I don't get the spin I want. And that's all built into these tour design wedges. You look at the irons market, and less than 2% of golfers are trying to play the TaylorMade blade that Scotty Scheffler plays, or the Titleist blade that Jordan Spieth plays. And they're not playing these pure blade irons because they know they don't have the skills.
Nope.
And yet they're trying to play that tour wedge, which we've done robotic testing on a tour blade pitching wedge versus a aftermarket pitching wedge from the same company. And the tour blade pitching wedge actually is more forgiving than the aftermarket wedge, the specialized wedge. So, at 46, 48 degrees. So, but golfers they're confused, and wedges are probably the most confusing club in the bag based on the massive amount of feedback I've gotten in 30 years of being in the wedge category. People are confused about bounce and grinds. They're confused about spin and grooves. And they don't realize the club head design itself is just as important in a wedge as it is in any other club, which is why you see the great variety in irons and hybrids and putters, but you don't see that variety from brand to brand to brand in the wedge category, because those tour players all have the same skills. They all want the same performance from their wedges. So brand A is going to look pretty much like brand B and brand C and brand D.
Well, what I love about these is I'm now to the point now where I'm able to, kind of proud of this, that I've learned the technique. I can hit different types of shots if I want to hit, even with the same club. If I want to hit something that's low and spinny, or if I want to hit something, open up the club face and use the bounce of this club, and get something that is more in the air, will stop and drop and spin. So your clubs are certainly helping me and giving me that confidence to practice and then get out there and hit those type of shots that can be nerve-wracking, because then all of a sudden you got that nice lie where it's fluffed up a little bit. It's like, you know what, I got to hit something that's a little more floppy, where a couple of years ago, just that fear of then sculling it across the green or out of bounds or 40 yards past, and then all of a sudden it's a triple bogey waiting to happen. I don't have those fears anymore. So I've learned some technique, and your clubs are certainly helping me do that. Hey, before we continue on here, I did notice that we've got quite a few people that are joining us now. I just want to say to them, thank you for jumping on and joining us. We are making this interactive. If you've got any questions about wedges, about design, about entrepreneurship, hey, just put them in the chat here on YouTube. Ask Terry a question, because we want to make this interactive, and I'll pull your question out up here and give you a bit of a shout out. So yeah, the little bit of time we have left here, if you've got anything to ask Terry, please don't be shy. Just put it out there and ask a question. So yeah, also wanted to ask you, just as far as with these clubs here again. So for I want to call it onboarding, but even just knowledge for the average golfer. And I know you write a lot of blog posts. You've done a great job of educating people without overwhelming them. You're a very good writer of keeping it nice, clear, like some things that can be very complex. You can go down that dorky rabbit hole if you wanted to, but you're great by actually keeping it relatable and simple. Because I play with people that are pretty good golfers, and I'll talk about, they go, what did you use? I said, I'll use my gap wedge or my lob wedge. And they're like, what is that? Or I said, I'm going to use my 55 on this. And they're like, what is that? Like, they don't even have that level of education, and they're good enough players. For me, it kind of bends my mind that there's this disconnection, that I'm thinking, you're already at that next level of golf, that you should have that knowledge. So tell us about some of the work that you do to help educate people and inspire them to kind of get to that next level, to and kind of upskill them in the world of wedges.
Well, as you mentioned, I've been writing a blog as the wedge guy for almost 20 years, pretty consistently. Been kind of taking a little bit of time off from it recently because we had so much going on here at Edison. But, what I try to do is address the questions I get from people. I have the luxury as a small company of being able to talk to customers. And Colin, the two most misunderstood concepts about wedges are the concept of bounce and grind, and what people think about grooves. And some of the new wedges out there trying to make a big story about grooves. Well, the fact of grooves on a wedge is the USGA wrote the new rules on grooves in 2010, 14 years ago. And nobody in the industry can do anything to a golf club today that we were not allowed to do 14 years ago. Now, what we've done is we've made minuscule advances in machining techniques and tolerances, and we can push that groove geometry another 2 or 3 or maybe 5% from where we were 15 years ago. But there's no story here. We all are bound by the rules of golf. We all can do the same things. Nobody's got an inside track on machining techniques. So I kind of resent these people trying to make a big story out of grooves. But if you don't change your club head, what else are you going to talk about, I guess? It's kind of a little dig there, but we all push the groove geometry to whatever the USGA will let us do and not beyond, because we don't want to make non-conforming wedges. The other aspect that's so confusing to people is this concept of bounce and grinds and this idea that you can fit bounce to a golfer. And I've like I said, I've seen 80,000 wedge fitting profiles, and 90% of golfers say my divot size changes and the kind of turf I play on changes. Well, if those two things are constantly changing, how are you going to fit one of them? And I tell people, I can fit your bounce. Can you tell me exactly what your next wedge lie is going to look like and exactly the size of your next divot? And nobody knows those things, a tour player or otherwise. And if you watch the tour players, when they've got tour trailers following them around, and if they get to a site and Monday, Tuesday, the turf is pretty tight, pretty firm, and it rains Wednesday night, they're going into the van and getting wedges with a little more bounce in them because the conditions change. The rest of us, we're making an investment. These need to last for 2 or 3 years everywhere we go, every shot we face. And that's what drove me to develop this sole with 2 bounce angles in it, so we can handle the soft turf, but it can handle the tight lie on the very next shot. And, this time you kind of nip it off the turf. The next time you get a little deep, a little steep, and you take a bigger divot. The whole idea is I'm trying to give you a sole that's versatile. And we have. This sole's been perfected and proven for over 30 years now in wedges by Reed Lockhart and Eidolon and Score and Ben Hogan and now Edison. And it's got a very loyal following because it just works. I mean, I had a customer say, this is the Swiss Army sole. It does everything pretty well. And it really does. I thought it was kind of fun.
I love that. To finish up here, I wanted to ask you about some of the social media content creators that are out there and some that are focusing specifically on the short game and the wedge game. And one in particular, I haven't had a chance to meet him yet. He's getting so big, maybe I won't have a chance to connect with him, but hopefully I do. And he's out of the UK, and that's Dan Grieve. And I just heard about him a couple of months ago and what he does with the short game to make it relatable. Are you finding, whether it's Dan or some others that are out there, are you connecting with them, or even just looking at this is for the wedge game? It's like it's part of that rising tide that's lifting all the wedge boats here. That's making people kind of more educated, more confident, and understanding more. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on what's going on in the in whether it's golf YouTube and people that are focusing on the short game and wedges.
Well, no question that these online reviewers, and we just had a wonderful review by a YouTube reviewer, Eric at Big Boy Pants Golf. And, but what's really interesting is kind of like the NIL thing is kind of screwing up college athletics. Now all these athletes are paid to play, and that's making its way into the reviewer world too. And we're a small company. We can't just dole out big money to buy reviewers' attention. And we earn all of our reviews because we don't pay anybody for a review. But there's some of that out there from the big companies with big budgets, and we run into reviewers and that say, I can't do your deal. I have an exclusive deal with brand A or brand B. But we're always out there looking for people. But to me, the most important review is your review. If you're thinking about new wedges and you're trying to sort through all of this stuff, we sell every wedge we have with 100% risk-free trial. The only review that makes the difference is your own review. And so people can buy one of our wedges, go play it 3 or 4 or 5 rounds. Don't just take it to the range with range balls and inexact, testing, but take that golf club out. And we're confident, 98.5% of our owners prove it. When you put this wedge under play, you're going to see the difference. We call it the Edison difference. It doesn't look like anybody else's wedge because we don't want it to play like their wedges. And the only reviewer, like I say, the only reviewer that counts is you. If you're thinking about what to put in your bag, then do your own review of our golf club and let us know, what we can do to make it better. And we pride ourselves on being 100% custom shop. We don't have stock wedges laying around. And, some of our orders are at what regular steel, stiff shaft, standard lie, standard length, standard grip, and we build it that way. But we want to build every wedge exactly for that golfer that's going to play it so that he or she has the right length, the right lie angle, the right shaft to optimize their performance. That's what our wedge fit analysis is all about.
Yeah, I've just got your website up here just for the last couple of minutes here. It's just on the side. So yeah, I do encourage everybody, hey, if you're not aware of Edison Golf and the wedges and Terry, please have a look at their website there. All the good things that they're doing and find out what that differentiator is, because many of you may think that, wow, this is a crowded market, a lot of big players with a lot of marketing budget. But Terry, as an entrepreneur, I respect for you, what you've done over the last few years and how you continue to grow and how you scale. And you've managed to do this in a very lean way, I guess you can say. And it's just really impressive. So as we finish up here, I would like you to, for people that are out there that are entrepreneurs thinking about entrepreneurship, maybe they got an idea, they've got a product, maybe in the golf space, maybe not. But what have you really learned over the last 4 years that we've last talked? Because you've had success, you've had growth, and sometimes when you grow too quickly, it's like careful what you ask for, you just may get it, and then you stumble over yourself, and it's actually you don't have the resources or the sequencing in place to scale it up and go to that next level. But you have. So what can you impart with us as we finish up here is some of those lessons that you've learned there, or nuggets of wisdom you can pass along for entrepreneurs once you've started, because you're not a startup anymore. You are an early growth company and beyond. So crossing that chasm, what have you learned that did work and perhaps didn't work that has helped you to move forward to make your business grow and make it sustainable and successful?
Well, I've been real blessed. I've been an entrepreneur for my whole life. A few years out of college, I jokingly tell people that it took me about 3 or 4 years to figure out I was completely unemployable. I started my own marketing and advertising agency, and that got me into the golf space. And I found that I had a real knack for seeing golf clubs differently than other people did. And I've always had a penchant for how things work, since a little kid, taking my fishing reels apart, taking my toys apart, see how they worked, and getting them back together so they'd work again. But I've been blessed to be asked to guest lecture to an entrepreneur class at a local university here in Corpus Christi, and I've kind of narrowed the entrepreneur thing down. I like to call it the 3 Ps, and you have to have perseverance, you have to have patience, and you have to have a passion. And it's very difficult to put the hours in as an entrepreneur if you're not passionate about what you're doing. For me, it's never been passion about making money. I know people that are very successful that is what drives them, is that financial scorecard. I know we can build better wedges for golfers. I know we can help people become better golfers by giving attention to this very important part of their game. Next to your putter, you're probably going to use those 2 or 3, 4 wedges more than anything else in your bag. You're going to hit driver 10 or 12 times. You're going to, maybe have, you're going to use putter probably on every hole, unless you pitch in with your Edison wedge. But, but the average golfer is hitting 2, 3, 5 greens around. You've got some par fives. You're hitting anywhere from, 8 to 10, 12 wedge shots around. And that's where scoring happens. And I call it your trim brushes. This is where you finish off and polish off the round of golf. And I'm extraordinarily passionate about it. I'm a little over 72. I've kept my skills up. You were asking about testing a while ago. I trust my own feel and my own performance to let me know if I'm on the right track. I've been very blessed. But I think to be an entrepreneur, you have to persevere. You have to be patient, and you have to be driven by a passion to do something that's important to you inside. And hopefully it's important to people on the outside.
The 3 Ps. I love that. Well, there's our mic drop moment. We can finish up with that because that's a great piece of insight there and nugget of wisdom there. So thank you for that, for sharing that one there. Before we finish up though, because you and I have collaborated and done some content creation on our YouTube channel, and a couple of years ago with the beautiful wedges here that I've got, we did a fun review of the Edison 1.0s with me and a couple of buddies that I play with on the weekend. I think that one got at least 5,000 views on that. So we definitely got a little bit of traction. And that's when our YouTube channel was just starting out. So I believe you made the offer, going to put you on the spot, that you're going to send me 3 2.0s, and we're going to do a little comparison between what I have, and I've got a launch monitor now. So we're going to test some distances and have some fun with that and create another YouTube video there with the 2.0s. So we'll be doing that in a couple months once you have the chance to send me some new wedges. So that's exciting.
Yeah, we'll get those out. I think you'll see with the feedback we get from our owners that have gone from first generation to second generation is that we did make a measurable and appreciable difference in performance, which is what you always want to do. We're not just facelifting it so that we can say we have something new. But I'm always working on new things, but right now I haven't seen a wedge out there and we test them all as they come out. Nothing can compare with what we've done with the 2.0. But we'll push ourselves to do better because we're not really getting pushed by the big companies because their tour players are holding them back. So
right. Love this. Well, you know what? It won't be another 4 years before you and I talk again. I always love the conversation. I always learn something new from you. not only as an entrepreneur, as a designer, as an innovator, and this is a human being. It's like, I love your energy and love your insights, and love everything that you share with me as far as helping me improve my wedge game. So with that, hey, the last thing I want to say here, if you're watching this either now live, and a couple people have, and thank you, although you're a little shy, you didn't ask any questions. So next time, come on, put your questions out there. Terry would love to answer them, as would I and all of our guests here. But yeah, afterwards, of course, we post this, and yeah, with us, with ModGolf, with the YouTube channel. If you can subscribe to the channel, we're getting close to 1,000, which means we can actually start to unlock a few other things here, which allows us to do even more and more and create more content. So yeah, it's a simple ask. If you can subscribe to the ModGolf YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate that. And talking about gratitude and appreciation, Terry Koehler, again, founder, chairman, director of innovation with Edison Golf Wedges. Thank you so much for joining me on ModGolf Live today. This has been amazing. Thanks for that.
Oh, it's always fun, Colin. Thanks for having me on.
All right. You take care. Have a great day.
You too. Have a good one.